Hi chaps, Martin's shave tests, back again, this time with something totally out of the ballpark. I went for a haircut today, my good friend Hicham, best barber in the area, and look what I found. On his counter I found this. This is one of these, shall we say, probably Far Eastern razors, imported by various people. This one actually has Focus World UK on it. This is about as British as you can't get. So in fact it's made in Pakistan or China. However, just like gold dollars, they're not always bad. So what I did was I thought I'll clean this one up. He'd allowed it to go a little tiny bit rusty here and there, the spine in particular, and it had the most horrendous pivots which stuck out like a huge amount and caught your fingers. I've ground those, polished them. So getting back to the honing, which is what this is all about, I first of all made a terrible error earlier. I didn't check the geometry, and sure enough, as most gold dollar style razors are, its geometry was bloody awful. However, I've now put a black marker on the edge. I've already worked quite hard on my wonderful 1K stone, which I have to admit is one of my favourites. It's the King Deluxe Stone 1000, so 1000 grit stone. So I've worked quite a lot on that. In fact, I've worked so hard to get the warps out. But look, this is a really crude diamond plate, which I had to use to flatten my stone after the amount of wear I put on trying to get the warps out of this. However, let's just test to see if the warps are all gone. You can see there is a black felt marker on the edge. So let's see. That's looking better. Not 100%. Oh damn! All that work, and I've still got slight bulge in the edge. To say, you cannot trust Chinese stroke East Asian razors. But that's not too bad. I got a shiny line, and that's the advantage with using a 1K stone. You're going to remove an awful lot of steel, but you need to. Not that anybody, this also goes for some of the older Sheffield wedges, where they're often not very well ground, they're not very accurate. And if you want to put an accurate edge on, sometimes sadly you have to revert to this. At least I do. But being an old engineering type fellow, it doesn't bother me too much. But can you see the amount of warp that was on that blade? That is really ridiculous. So, however, as you can see, the line now is clean. It's a clean edge. So that'll do me. Anyway, so that's the bevel set. That's the warps not entirely taken out. If this is a quality old razor, I wouldn't have dared do this. But as it's a, well, I won't use the word I was going to say, but as this isn't a particularly good example of a quality razor, it doesn't really matter. So that's now back to as it should be. So we can now remove the 1K stone. Let me just check that. Yeah, that'll do. In fact, what I'd like to do is get some kitchen towel and very quickly, this is an old trick of mine, use a little bit of the grit. You're not going to do any harm, just to wipe off the marker, so you get a clean surface to check again. Anyway, right, now we're going to use another test from me. Testing day today. We're going to use this stone I bought, not saying it's a mistake, but I've never used one before, so I thought I want to see what one of these, what I call rough coticals, are like. So it's the underlying strata, not the biscuit coloured lovely fine coticle. This is the underlying, so what I call a rough coticle. Two-part, smooth one side, rough the other. So I'm going to use the rough side It's my cat. I'm going to use the rough side just to refine the edge. Immediately, huge difference in feel. That feels absolutely superb. So anyway, as I've already mentioned, this is a restoration on a modern, either Pakistani, Indian or Chinese imported modern razor. Very dubious quality, but you never know. As I've found with the gold dollars, you can get some very good steel. Just usually they're a little bit warped. However, yeah, the bevel has been set all the way along. A few more strokes on this rough side. Please don't ask me what sort of Ardennes layer it is. I neglected when I bought it to take much notice. I really need to write on the box, but it feels a lot better than 1K. So let's call it the equivalent of probably 5K. So that will do. This is only a rough razor. So now let's drive up a little tiny bit of slurry on the good side. I can't fit this onto my usual stand for the simple reason it's too long. These aren't particularly expensive because they ain't really what I call a proper coticle. But I'll be shouted at for saying that. I'm sure it is a proper coticle. So drive a little tiny bit of slurry. This is a very pleasant colour. It's an Ardennes of some sort, but it's rather a nice purpley colour. Reminds me of a Welsh or Italian slate. So I'm going to call this a slate coticle. Anyway, let's put a finishing edge. I'm using two hands as I normally do on a razor I'm not sure of, to balance out the pressure. Only, as I've said many times before, if you're doing that on a stone, this is the way barbers, particularly in Japan, used to, or still probably do, and of course it wrecks the geometry and you get a very strange shaped blade, which is why when they're second hand and they're up for sale on eBay or wherever, they're deep at one end and far too shallow at the pointy nose end. This is because they've been honed badly over the years. But this, I gotta say, I don't know what this is exactly, but this nice big purpley smooth coticle is very pleasant to use. I don't think it's taken off huge amounts. So what I'm going to do now is wash it off and just see what it does purely as a plain stone with a little tiny bit of water. Yeah, it's really smooth. Now I have heard, it has been rumoured that these, I'm going to call it a slate coticle for want of a better word, they do shave well. So I'm used to using the biscuity coloured proper coticle. Do you know, I've got a feeling this is doing a really good job. Yeah, there's quite a nice shine on that. I'd rate this as about 8K on feel, and if it is around the 8K, it will shave very well. So anyway, I think that's enough for now, guys. I will take it upstairs. I'm going to try a decent swapping on a Kaneyama strop, my more worn Kaneyama strop, not putting this on a mint one. If it hanging hair tests well, I'll shave with it another day, probably tomorrow. But feel is everything, and I've got to say, this stone is surprising me. It's really smooth, which means it's refining the edge originally from 1K. On that side, I don't know what it is, but it's quite coarse. On this side, it's rather nice. These are big, generous stones. They're not expensive. So, it's still got the Ardennes coticle box. Nice minty box. As you can see, Ardennes Cotical on it. I bought it new. I'm the only owner. But I wanted to do it as an experiment, and I think it's going to pay off. So there we have one dubious Chinese stroke Indian razor imported into the UK. I've done quite a lot of work on that this morning, but it's ready to strop, and then maybe tomorrow it'll shave. I've had a really good shave this morning. Did it with my herder. I can't think of the name. Herder razor, the one which is on a Cotical edge, and it was superb. Anyway, let's hope this one works. Cheap as chips. I got this from my friend Hicham. I should return it to him as well. That's all for now. Martin's Shave Tests. Bye for now.